Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a quick unboxing and first look at a brand new camera from Sony that I just received. It's designed specifically for content creators, much like the ZV-E1 and the ZV-E10, but it's more expensive than both of those, but not quite as expensive, of course, as the freshly announced ZV-E1. That is a full-frame mirrorless interchangeable lens camera, 12-megapixel sensor, AI processing unit, amazing features built into that camera, but it is nearly $2,200 without a lens. That's the body alone price. It'll start shipping in May, and of course I will be reviewing it here. But Sony realized that not everyone is going to want to jump straight from one of these to the ZV-E1. I mean, that's a huge gap in both performance as well as pricing. To me, the ZV-E1 is really a marriage of the FX3 that I'm filming on now with something like the ZV-E10. And it makes a lot of sense, but again, there's a gap to be filled in between this camera and that brand new E1. Now, the ZV-1, of course, the least expensive it was. The ZV-1F replaced that with its fixed lens, and I haven't reviewed that yet, but hopefully I'll have it here in the studio soon. They're both good options. Obviously, the less expensive at $500 1F, that's all about having that fixed lens prime piece of glass, and it's wider than what we have here. But if you want a little more flexibility and you actually do like the idea of having a lens that can zoom, then this is going to be the better option. In fact, I personally prefer this over a wider fixed angle lens in something like this. But again, it's really to address vlogging and not so much necessarily general content creation. Now, if you move from something like this to, of course, this larger camera right here, this is going to be optimal for many of you because, as I move this out of the way, this is giving you so much more capability with its APS-C sensor, the ability, just like the brand new ZV-E1, to throw any E-mount glass on there that you want. Essentially a still and video machine. This is certainly going to be more expensive because you're going to have to pick up lenses like this 10 to 18 APS-C lens from Sony, which is ideal for the ZV-E10. For anyone that's wondering, I think this is the perfect piece of glass for it, no matter what you plan to do with it. But again, this still may not be enough for the content creator on the go, because also it gets fairly big. I mean, once you start putting lenses on this, its form factor goes away very quickly. So in comes what was sent to me now, which again, I was very happy that Sony decided to send this because I really didn't expect anything from them. I mean, I'm still waiting on the A7R5, and this is something that I sent out an email essentially just hoping that I was going to get the A7R5 and the ZV-E1 here in the studio sooner than later, and they decided to send this over. So not sure exactly what we're looking at here. It appears to be some kind of pouch or something. And I'm assuming we've got some accessories here. This looks like some kind of base for charging. Let's go ahead and see. I'm not really sure what we're working with here. Move the packaging out of the way. So it looks like this is some sort of, as I said, a base. Anything else in the box? Let me just double check. I am not seeing anything else in the box, but some sort of base essentially to dock the device on, I assume. So you're going to dock what I'm about to share with all of you on this, and that probably acts as a charging mechanism. I'm not sure how. One of the big moves that I really appreciated that Sony brought to the table with the announcement of the ZV-E1 was that they were now finally essentially making their cameras smart, something that's been missing for a really long time. If you want to knock smartphones off the block, when it comes to casual users that essentially only rely on smartphones, you've got to make a different kind of device that will give you a similar experience. And the ZV-E1 looks like it will, but it's full frame and it's $2,200. The majority of people are not going to want that. So I think that's where this product comes into play. So again, I'm assuming this has Qi charging or something to that effect. Let's go ahead and see what we've gotten here. And as I mentioned, this is specifically positioned in between the ZV-1, ZV-E10, but it's in between those models, and of course I keep forgetting the F, and the brand new ZV-E1. So really the idea to give us something more affordable, but just as competent is how I view it. So we've got a nice leather case. I'm assuming since we're in 2023, this is not actual leather. Most manufacturers stay away from that these days. Sony branding. This reminds me of cameras from years past, so I already like this. All of Sony's design language is generally really nice. But let's go ahead and open this thing up. Aha. Now, I already see we've got something going on here. Carl Zeiss branding, something we haven't seen on a lot of Sony products these days. I mean, they've kind of phased it out on the lenses, but of course, we still got Zeiss branding on the ZV-1, and, you know, that's not a bad thing. I love Zeiss glass. I still have Zeiss glass, but let's go ahead and slide this thing out. So, this is incredibly small. I mean, we're talking about incredibly tiny. I mean, just to give you reference, as I look at this, palm of my hand, there you go. It's about the same size, I would say, as the ZV-1, but you may have already noticed I see 10 times optical zoom, and this is designed, I think, specifically to be a video machine. We've got a built-in flash right there. You may have noticed. Very cool. I mean, I love the form factor. Let's go ahead and open up the display. Like most of Sony's cameras as of late, we do have a flippy screen, as many like to say. Can fully articulate, go in any direction that you desire, which is really cool. So if you want to film yourself, not a problem. You're in business. And it seems like a generous panel here. It looks like it's roughly about nearly 3 inches, but I think they're trying to really maintain, again, this form factor. Power button right there. We have HDMI out. Now, to my knowledge, I don't know whether this is raw out or not at this point, so don't quote me on any of that. And believe it or not, Sony decided with this to go, I guess this is part of the partnership with Zeiss, kind of like their camera that they launched, their full-frame camera years ago. They've decided to go in a similar direction. So my understanding from what I got from my Sony rep is that we have internal storage of 1 terabyte inside of this. We have an APS-C sensor, so it's not full frame like the more expensive ZV-E1, but it is a 12 megapixel sensor. Not a 24, which is brand new from Sony. And this is going to allow you to shoot 4K 120 internally to that 1 terabyte of storage. And in addition to that, it does have Wi-Fi. It is, to my knowledge, Wi-Fi 6 compatible. I'm not sure about 6E. And when it comes to battery life, you're looking at, again, this is what I got from the Sony rep. You're looking at about 3 hours total runtime, and that's because they've built in a high capacity, and the spec sheet, at least that I have here, reads that it is actually nearly 10,000 milliamp hours, which is, you know, kind of unheard of. I mean, when you think of the camera Sony makes, to have a built-in battery like that, built-in storage of 1 terabyte, you're really cooking with all the right ingredients. Start and stop right there, specifically for video, but it also doubles as a shutter switch for stills. But remember, 12 megapixel stills, they're not going to blow you away. This is really all about video, just like the brand new ZV-E1. You can control the internalized zoom that's housed inside of this right here. And another really nice thing, audio. So the audio capsule on the top here is excellent as per my rep. The whole idea, just like all of the cameras in the ZV family, is that you're not going to need to have anything else. No external microphone hookup, so that's really nice. On the bottom, you can see we have a 1/4-20 mount right there. You want to throw it on a tripod or, of course, a selfie stick. Lanyard thread right there. One thing I forgot to show all of you is that when you flip out the display, again, that fully articulating display, you also have some controls on the inside. So the ability to display your battery info right there. Hopefully that's in focus, and then a reset switch and a button dedicated for easy filming, which, you know, seems logical. That's the whole premise of the entire ZV lineup, is to really make it simple to get great shots. But yeah, pretty interesting camera, no question about it. Excited to see what all of you think. I missed this down here, apparently, is the charge port. And this is odd. It seems like they went back to using their legacy charging equipment. I don't know if this is just because they've got so many of those Handycam chargers around. All right, this is where I come clean. So clearly you realized at this point, this is not a brand new launch. It is an April Fool's video. And, well, I hope that you enjoyed it. You know, I give it a shot each year. This is actually the Sony TG1, HDR TG1. I'm sure many of you have caught on to that. Some of you knew immediately. Some of you knew as you watched. This was actually the first camera that I used to film here on my channel. And yes, I still have it. Thankfully, it didn't get destroyed by Hurricane Matthew. And really, it just, you know, it has a place on my wall in the studio because it's a camera I will never forget. When it launched, it was something that I had wanted so badly. It was my first all-digital camcorder. It is, as you can see, a handy cam. I do still have my leather pouch. I don't have the retail packaging, but that wouldn't have been something I would have used in this video anyway. But an amazing little camera, great video quality. Of course, it was HD, but it had a lot of problems because, well, it didn't have the issues of overheating that a lot of cameras had at the time, and that's how I was able to use it for my channel. You were stuck with, you know, the possibility of Pro Duo. You did have a built-in, a removable battery. You know, battery life was decent. It wasn't amazing, but for the time, which I believe this launched like in 2008, 2009, this was an amazing piece of hardware. Again, to have high-quality video that could travel anywhere, was really compact. I mean, the next step was to just make point-and-shoot cameras that were as small, that were more feature-rich. But again, to have full HD recording, I mean, I remember the days when people were complaining about AVC HD, you know, Sony's codec. And now, of course, people are probably back to complaining again because, you know, they've advanced with more codecs, more profiles. They've come a really long way. I mean, back when Sony made this, I mean, they didn't really even have a foot in the digital imaging business. Sure, they were making point-and-shoot cameras, and they also had acquired Konica Minolta and begun, but nobody was willing to invest in them. Or most people. I, on the other hand, was. And I loved the Sony gear that I started out with back in the early mid-2000s, and here I am, having had reviewed Sony cameras now for over a decade. So, Sony, keep doing what you're doing. Great stuff. April Fool's is stupid, but hey, just trying to have fun, and hopefully everyone does ultimately have fun. But that wraps things up. Again, looking forward to eventually getting the ZV-E1 into the studio to review and share with all of you. But it is pretty amazing what Sony used to do, but maybe it's not so amazing because what they still do is pretty amazing. But yeah, that was my first video camera here on the channel. If anyone's ever wondered, this is it. Again, the HDR TG1. You can still find these used. I don't recommend it. It's a 15-year-old camera, but it will do the job, no question about it. You just have to look back at my quality, which I thought back in the day was better than the majority of tech-related YouTubers that at least I followed, and so it was a no-brainer. But it was expensive. It is Sony. It was compact. It did have HD video, which back then was a delicacy, to say the least. Kind of, where 4K was when it launched. But that wraps things up. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them at that like button. And as usual, please feel free to subscribe, and please stay safe. Later.